Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Facebook Live. We have the amazing Jenny Doan with us today, and we're so excited.
We are here to celebrate the holiday of love.
Yes,
all the
love.
All the love.
All the love. It's going to be so good. So let's let a few people join in with us. So
Look, if they can't get here on time, you know, we got to get going.
Well,
here.
we got to get better at
I
starting
got lots
on
of stuff
time
to
then.
do. Oh, there is that. All right.
We're just a little late, so thank you for being patient with us. So we posted yesterday and gave people a little sneak peek that we were going to be doing this today, and we had some ladies share some awesome projects. So we just wanted to.
Oh yeah, be sure and look in those comments
Yeah,
because those
check
are
out
cool
those
projects.
comments in the last post. So Ann Early made an awesome wall hanging, and then Joni Schwartzbeck made a really cool mini charm project. Heart project's really cute, and then Jackie Goosen made a project really similar to one we're going to teach today. So
yeah, these heart quilts are all over right now.
Over.
Everybody, you see a million of them. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to make this quilt. And the quilt I saw was actually full size.
Yeah,
I mean, it was a great big one. And I just changed it up because instead of using the big square, I used the tiny square.
Because they're adorable.
Plus they're so cute.
Tiny squares.
And then also I'm going to teach like 3 other ways to make hearts.
Perfect.
So anything your heart desires, we are going to teach you in this Facebook Live. So do we have people watching us?
I think so. It looks like we got people joining in.
You guys, the other thing I want to tell you is that if you have questions, any questions, I love the questions. So don't hesitate to ask.
You want to shout some people out?
And
yeah, I do.
Who's on?
So we've got some people. We have some people tuning in from Austria. That's cool. Texas, Argentina.
I want to go to Austria.
I know, me too. Jake.
Well, Texas too. Texas is kind of nice, but next to Austria,
Illinois.
Jolene's on, Mom.
Jolene's
Jolene's
on.
My friend Jolene.
All my kids are like, it's Jolene.
But yeah, we've got people watching from New York, Illinois, Texas, all over.
Yeah.
Super fun. Canada.
That's
really
fun.
great.
That is fun.
Awesome.
Lots of people out there.
I'll let you dive in, and I'll watch for questions along the way if you want.
So a couple of things. This is the little project I want to show you today, and it's just so easy. It's a pixelated heart, and so it's just plain old squares. And again, if you use big squares, it's going to be a big quilt, and I just used little tiny ones. So a couple of things about that I want to show you. First of all, I used Moda Love You and Project Red, and I used these little tiny candies. Now, I don't know if you know this, but Kona also makes the little tiny 2.5-inch squares in these little tiny mini charms right here. They're just so cute.
Of those background colors.
And they have twice as many. So you have 42 in here. They have 84 in this. So a nice big stack.
Awesome.
And lots of good ones. So to make this project, you're going to need like 4 of these little ones. And again, I just used 2 different lines to just change it up a little bit.
Show them there in the square, Mom.
Oh, here we go. Wait, let me get this out of the way. Here we go. So 4 of these little ones, let me turn it around so you can read it. There we go. So we used Project Red by Sweetwater and Love You by, let me look at that. Can you read that?
Sandy Gervais.
Oh, Sandy Gervais, of course. These eyes are getting old. So 2 of those and 2 of those. And then if we look at this, you'll realize that really what you need, instead of needing 4 little ones, you really need 1 5-inch charm pack. You can cut it in 4ths and still get the same amount. So pretty easy to do. Now, I want you to look at this really carefully because I loved the look of prints in the background. But my prints were super dark, and I didn't feel like it gave it enough contrast. So guess what I did? I flipped them over. So like this one right here, you know, I'm just turning this over and using the back side as my background so that it's lighter. It still gives it that texture and look without all these bright colors popping. So here, let me.
Such a fun trick.
Let me show you these ideas. So basically, I just turned those over and used the backs of things. You know, you can see this one here is well as this one right here.
So it almost looks like you whitewashed over.
Right, but
So
if you
cute.
flip it over, it's the regular charm. And so if you don't have enough lights in the pack you have, you can always just, you know, flip them over.
They said, what size are the minis?
The minis are 2.5 inch squares. So it's 1/4 of a charm. And basically what I want to do on this is I'm just going to kind of walk you through this because this is just a laid out thing. So I did a a background row on the top, on the bottom, and on the sides to frame in my heart. Then what I did was I just laid them out. Now the laying out always takes me the longest because, to be honest, I'm a little crazy about, where am I
making it all mixed perfectly.
Making it all mixed up. And so I actually just sat at my desk and put this at my desk, and I laid out. So the first row has 2 reds and 3 on either side. Oh wait, this has 4 and 3 and then 3 here. So
this is a red still. You counted this as a red.
Yes.
So,
okay.
So
that's
3.
right. So 3, 3, and 3, and then 2 reds. Yeah. The next row has 4. We start to build our heart out, and we still have 1 in the center to separate that, and then 2 on either side. And this next row is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I did 2 rows of 11. And then we go to 9, we go to 7, we go to 5, 3, and 1. And that makes our heart. Now the total number across is 13. So, it's just kind of how you want to do it. The odds worked out best for me, the odd numbers, and we just laid them out. So basically, that's all you're going to do is just sew your little charms together, lay them out in the rows that you want them, and sew them together. And again, I was in Arizona, and my friend Kara had this beautiful pixelated heart quilt that she made, and she made out of 5-inch squares. And so it was close to twin size.
It
was pretty big.
Yeah.
And there's a shop there that she took us to, and it's called Bolts and More, which I think is a really cute name for a shop. But it's right there in Gilbert, Arizona, and they had this big quilt, and I was like, can I do that on a Facebook Live, And then I decided when I got home that I would shrink it down because I have this cute place on my front porch that, is just perfect for a little quilt like this, and I like to hang these little quilts on the front porch, and I just thought it would be so cute,
yes.
Really, really fun. So if there's any questions about that, basically that's just following a diagram and sewing straight squares together. So that's basically it. All right, I want you to look at this little quilt behind me. This is the Tender Heart quilt, and this is a heart that's made with strips. Now, we make all our hearts the same way, whether they're strips or squares or halves, and I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So, basically, this is the Tender Heart block where we sewed 4 strips together like this, and then cut them into 5-inch segments. And so we use 2 different ones on either side. If you match them up, it's going to look like this. And let me show you how to do that. So I've got some pieces here. And basically on the top of your heart, and the fun thing about this is that once you know how to make hearts, you really can, like one of these rows would be a cute table runner.
Right.
I mean, so many other projects. Put 4 together and it's a cute pillow.
Yep.
I think this would make a darling giant pillow.
Oh, it would be so
on
cute.
On your couch. I just think that would be so cute.
So adorable.
So, when you see a project, in its finished state, don't be afraid to, play with what you're doing with it and that sort of thing. All right, so I'm going to take these strips and I'm going to take 4 2.5-inch squares right here. And I need 1 for each corner on the top, like this. And then for the bottom of my stripes, I'm going to need 2 5-inch squares. So I have a layer cake square here, and I'm just going to cut this into 4 pieces, just like this. And of course, you can use charms, or, if you want your heart to be a little less pointy, you can use smaller squares. This is one of those projects you really can play with. So I'm going to fold these and give myself a diagonal sew line right here. All right.
Sure.
We want you guys to be able to see, so we'll make this work.
Is that better?
Is that better?
But it's a little crooked.
All right, I'm straightening it up. There, is that good? Straight? I know, I'm crazy about that linear thing too,
I know.
I'm like, that's off just to,
I'm the same way.
All right, so we have our two big pieces here, and I'm just going to put, you see I've creased the line, and I'm going to put one on this side like this, and one on this side like this, and we're going to sew those right on the line, all right?
Yep.
So let's go to the sewing machine and do that. I thought I might have, oops, sorry about that. I just accidentally moved that. Can you still see in this camera over here, Isaac? Because I just hit it with my chair. Alrighty. Now I'm going to sew right on this line. And Misty, I'm going to let you cut these and
Perfect.
So you're going to cut on the outside of the seam. Make sure they know that.
Yep.
So
this
not
outside corner.
Yeah, the outside corner.
All right.
And then I'm going to sew this one on. I know most of you don't see Misty sew very often, but she can. She can sew.
I can sew.
All right. And then we're gonna press this back, and we'll do it with the real ironing board. Right now I'm just gonna use my fingernails. And then on the top, we're gonna do the same thing to each corner. So we're gonna take our little 2.5-inch square and fold it diagonally so we have a little line. Over here, so this right here. So see our little line? Can you see that?
No, too high.
Too high.
No, down on the, yeah, we're really zoomed in.
Am I good? Am I good down here? Can you see it?
Nope.
Where do I go?
By the needle, yeah.
By the needle.
Right there.
Oh, okay. So you can see the little line we're going to sew on, and I'm going to put one of those on either side of the top of the heart. So there, and I'm going to add one to this side as well. Now the bottom two squares, you have to make sure those are going the right direction. On the top, you're going to put them on both sides, so it doesn't matter which one goes where.
There's those two.
All right, so you need to trim those off.
All right.
And we need to trim this one off too. I'm just going to use my scissors for this one. And then I'm going to sew up here this one. And again, I'm just going to trim that off. You can iron that back for me.
Perfect.
It's so awesome to have an ironer and a cutter. It goes so fast when we do that.
Teamwork.
Teamwork. All right. Press that one.
All right.
And then what we're going to do is we're going to take these two halves. So now you can see what we've done here is we have the two little squares on the top and the one big square on the bottom. And you can see right away how that's going to form a heart. We're going to sew that center square together and just sew 1/4 inch right down the middle.
So easy.
So easy. Now I'm going to let you iron this open.
Okay.
Hey, that's not too bad. That's not too bad.
I hope that's cute.
All right. Now, what if you want to do four squares, like 4 5-inch squares?
You're going a little fast.
Oh, am I going a little fast?
Racing.
I go everywhere fast.
She does everything fast. It's true.
I do everything fast.
That's why she has the world's fastest sewing machine.
Well, and I think
might
that's
not be true.
because I had so many children. I had so limited time.
That's probably
You know,
true.
that when it's like, I have 5 minutes to do this table runner before our guests come, you
And
know.
she would pull it off. The
I
rest
would
of
do
us
it.
would be losing our minds.
All right, so do a quick recap.
A recap on this one.
Okay, so recap on this one right here is that we sewed 2 5-inch squares on the bottom like this of each segment and trimmed it off, ironed those back, and then we put 2.5-inch squares on the top, inside and outside corner. Then we folded this and sewed the two together. So I'm going to show you now if you want to make one with solid squares, so like a 4-patch. So we're just going to take 4 different colored squares right here.
Cute.
And what we're going to do is it's the same thing. So I love that these can look so versatile. It's the same sewing, but they look so versatile because of how because when you put different fabrics together.
It changes it up.
Yeah. So I'm gonna take 4 of these out and 2 of these. So if you will iron my seam line,
Yep.
I can actually eyeball this side to side,
Okay.
and I'm okay with that because it doesn't have to be perfect either. But you may want to press your little seam or draw your line. Some people like to draw the line. So on 2 of our squares right here, and I'm just going to lay this out here so you can see how it's going to look, and then we'll sew it together. So here's our little top right here. And because these are 4 individual squares, they're going to, oh, you probably need to press these so they lay nice and flat.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to let her press those, and then I won't have to hold them down.
She said she missed how the block went together.
Okay.
You might ask if they...
Well, we're gonna do this 3 times, with different style blocks, but it's basically the same idea.
Yeah, they come together the same
So
way.
this block was 2 separate pieces, and we just laid them right sides together and sewed 1/4 inch top to bottom like this, and it put those 2 together. And we're not, you know, see here, out here, we're not worried about this because this is all going to be caught in that 1/4 inch seam when we put them together. All right, so now let me show you how this one is going to come together. So the top 2 are going to have 2.5 inch squares like this. And one more right here.
Yep.
And what we're going to do on these top ones is we're going to open this up just like this and put them on here like this and sew on that diagonal line. And we're going to do this to both corners of the 2 top squares. On the bottom square, so you can see how quickly this becomes a heart. So we'll have these 2 squares and then these 2 squares, just like that, and it becomes a heart.
Perfect.
So I'm going to take these top 2 over here, just like this, and sew these down. And when you have your 2.5 inch blocks ready, you can actually just sew up one side like this. Let me make sure I got my foot on the pedal. Up one side like this, and then lay the other one in there because it's a 5 inch square, the 2.5 inch blocks meet up exactly at the top. And then I'm just going to leave my needle down and I'm going to pivot around here and I'm going to sew this. And then Misty, I'm going to let you trim and press.
Perfect.
And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other top. So lay this one right here.
Oops.
And then I'm going to slide this other one under here, open it up, and then pivot and come right down our iron line. All right. And I'm going to let you trim that one.
Okay.
While she's trimming and ironing that, I'm going to do our bottom squares, which means I'm going to lay my 5 inch white square right on top of the other square and sew straight down on that line. And then we're just going to go like this. We're going to trim this off. And then I'll let Misty press that open. And I'll do the same thing to the other side. Now normally, do you see this little pile of triangles I'm getting here? I will probably go back and sew those together because they can make some other fun little thing, you know. That's a pretty big piece of fabric. And usually what I do is I sew down the seam and then I flip right around and sew it again. So I have little half square triangles all over the place. All right, so these 2, now we're to the 2 top pieces.
Okay.
And, oh yeah, ask your questions. Oh, just
sorry.
ask them to me. Just ask them to me.
When you sew with pre-cuts, how do you measure the 1/4 inch seam allowance with pinked edges?
Oh, so that's a really good question.
Let's repeat it because they might not have heard
So
it.
it says, when you sew with pre-cuts, how do you measure an exact 1/4 inch when you have those pinked edges? Let me just say, these pinked edges do crazy things to our quilter brains.
Yes.
My brain does not consider them fabric. So when I sew and I put this down, the little pinked edge is actually sticking out from under my presser foot. I do not count it as fabric. So with just about anything I sew, what matters is that you're consistent,
Right.
not perfect. And so my 1/4 inch gets a little fatter, but it doesn't really matter because they're all
As long as you stay the same.
as long as you stay the same.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing to note is that, and I think this is pretty interesting, is that if you get a 10 inch square from Moda and a 10 inch square from Kaufman,
Right.
they're not exactly the same size, and you think, it's 10 inches for Pete's sake. But what happens is, Kaufman, these are Kaufman, and they have a bigger pinked edge on them.
Yeah.
So here, so they're bigger. The pinked edge is bigger, and on the Moda, they're teeny. So what Kaufman does is they measure from the inside of the peak to the inside of the peak
Right.
to make their 10 inch square. And on Moda's, it's from the outside of the peak to the outside of the peak to make theirs. But whenever that happens to me, and I have 2 different ones, I never trim them up.
Yeah.
What I do is I just choose one to follow. And so I always put my presser foot on whatever, the background fabric. Usually I choose the background fabric, and that's the one like especially when I'm doing half square triangles the way I do them, where you sew all the way
Right.
around. I just choose one square to follow, and that's where my pressure foot always goes down.
Yeah,
so
I do the same. I just kind of, if they're two different manufacturers, I'll just float it in between
Yep.
and just go with one. Just follow one.
All right. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to sew these two top squares right sides together, and this is the top part of our heart that makes the little curvy part. And I'm going to try to match those up pretty close so that our little seam comes. Oops, I just unthreaded my needle because I took off so fast. Let me see if I can, there we go. Thread that baby and start back on that seam. All right, so I'm going to sew this together right here. Misty, I'm going to let you press that.
All right, happy to.
I'm keeping her busy today.
I like it.
And then these two bottom ones right here, you just make sure your color comes together and your background is on the outside. Lay them right sides together like this, and we're going to sew 1/4 inch down that side. So here's this one. And, all right, now press that real quick.
Okay.
Now we're going to sew these together like a big 4 patch. So the question could be, do we sew the tops and the bottom, or do we sew the sides? Either way, it doesn't matter. This is just the way I happen to pick them up. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay this right on top of each other, and we're going to put it together like a 4 patch. So that means I'm going to take a few anchoring stitches right here to hold it. And then I'm going to make sure my seams are nested. And if I have, you know, like she has one ironed this way, but to nest it, I'm going to push it the other way. So I'm just going to come along here and sew there and then make sure I'm lined up again. All right, now iron that out. And that is a 4 patch heart. When you're dealing with different colors, that little, you know, that little seam in the center is going to matter. You're going to notice it. If you do this with all the same color, you know, say you have 4 charm packs and they're all red, it's not even going to show. So don't stress over that. All right, now the last way is going to be, if you have a 10-inch square and you want them to be exactly the same, and you don't have to cut it into 4 pieces. So we're just going to cut it in half right here, like this. And then again, we're going to put, we need to cut one of those, don't we?
Yep.
So I have some 5-inch squares.
Yep.
Now what happens if you pick up your thing and you only have a 4-inch square? Can you still do it? Sure you can. You know, it's going to be a little bit different, but you can still do it. All right, so.
Sorry, I'm in your way.
You are fine. All right, so iron those. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to pull out 4 for the top of my heart. I love, can I just say, my top #1 reason I love pre-cuts is because they're pre-cut. Because I don't have to cut everything. And, you know, I've got these knobby fingers, and this guy wants to grow that way. And, you know, my shoulders are rough. And so the less cutting I have to do, the better. So I begged them for these little 2.5-inch squares. I was so excited when they came out with them. And they're like, they sent me a little thing. They're like, look, we did them. You know, I'm just so happy about that. All right. Again, now go ahead and iron those down.
Okay. Yep.
And so what I'm going to do first, since that's what's ironed first, is I'm going to lay this on here, and I'm going to sew. I'm going to sew this right on the line, and I'm going to do it both ways. Now, when you're using the same color, you really want to make sure that it's going the right direction, because if you sew them and cut them, and this is going, you know, it won't look like a heart if they're both going. So they have to come opposites into the middle. And so I'm going to sew on these lines right here, come in, and just right on the line. Now, if you want to save these outer half square triangles for later, I'll show you what I do. This is not for a heart, well, it could, you know, I guess it could be a heart project for later, but what I do is I just lift up my presser foot and swing this around, and I come out about a 1/2 inch and I sew another seam, and then they're already together. Misty can cut in between those lines.
Yep.
And I just keep them in a baggie for when I need something, because to be honest, on any kind of thing where you need a half square triangle. They make cute little borders and little quick pinwheels and all that kind of stuff. So, all right. So now what I'm going to do on this one is I'm going to attach my 2 squares to the top like this. One on each side, both going from the center out. So you want to make sure when you put these on, let me go to the square right here so you can see. You want to make sure that yours are going so that when you sew like this, it's going to make that peak. So that's what you're doing. All right, so I'm going to go over to the sewing machine and I'm going to just lay this on here and go up and do them both at the same time. So along here, straight along the line. And then I'm going to slide this one in here under here, making sure my line is going the right way. And then I'm going to swing this around and come down the other side. All right, Misty, you can trim those off and iron that back.
We got one more. We got a question, huh?
Oh, good. What is it?
What are the sizes of the finished blocks?
Oh.
Oh, I don't know because it just, it's whatever size it ends up.
So
we're going to measure. We are going to measure.
This one comes out to be about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.5 with the 4 patches, which would make this one a little bit bigger because
it's going to be 9.5 by 10.
Right. It won't be quite square.
So that's something to think about. If you want to intersperse these, you need to make sure that they're the same size. So if I was going to put a one piece, you know, the layer cake one with the 4 patch, I would have to trim off a 1/2 inch.
Right, and that's just because of the number of seams that you're taking. And so then the strip one ends up 8.5 square.
They all start as, you know, well for me they start as, you know, 5 or 10 inch blocks and 2.5 inch strips, but the number of seams determines that. Yeah. So, so just, you can trim them up accordingly, but because I use pre-cuts, I never worry about the size because, and if I was going to make, you know, a heart quilt, I'm just going to make it, or like a table runner, I'll use the same style. So I'll make 4 patch hearts, you know, that sort of thing. And
where are you going to be at in Australia?
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, talk about Australia.
I'm actually not sure, but it's going to be like there are going to be koala bears and Sue Daly's going to be there.
Oh, we love Sue. She's the greatest.
It's going to be amazing. I know people say to me all the time, "We hear you're going on a cruise. Where are you going?" And I'm like, I'm not sure, but there's going to be sand and water and,
that's all
and sunshine, you know. And that's really what I look forward to. I love the travel, so it doesn't really matter to me where I'm going. It matters. I just love being able to do it.
Get to see new things.
It is. She asked if it's going to be on YouTube, so they can't hear me. So you might want to.
So what's
it is on YouTube. Yes.
This is.
This is.
Okay.
Yep.
So you'll be able to go back and look at it and that sort of thing.
Yep. It'll stay both on YouTube and Facebook.
Yeah, we're actually going a little bit over. Tell them that we're trying to keep it at 30 minutes, but.
Yeah, we're trying to keep this at 30 minutes, but I am a talker, you know.
That's all right.
All right, so here's what we're going to do now. So see right here, these are our 2 pieces. We don't have a seam in between, so now this is still 10, but we're going to take a seam in the middle. That's going to make it 9.5. Still looks like a darling heart.
It's adorable.
And so it's kind of what, you know, this is one of those projects where it's kind of whatever fabric you have is going to work. Just make sure you have the table runner of love on your table on Halloween.
Not on Halloween, on Valentine's.
On Valentine's.
Yeah. I mean, you could have a table runner of love on Halloween if you want.
Oh, I'm terrible. I always get my words mixed up.
We knew what you meant.
All right, so let's iron this out.
Iron this last one.
And so these are just 3 really, really cute, easy ways, quick ways to make hearts. So basically, whatever you're doing, you got to round these 2 corners up here, and you got to have the long V here. And so whether you do it with strips, or you do it with 4 patches, or you do it with a single piece, you know, it's really great. Now, let's talk about some of the things you can do with this, because if you guys look in the comments, you know, all the gals who did the projects.
Yes, so cute.
So many ideas. And now that you know how to make the basic heart, you know, when I make a heart table runner, I almost always turn one this way and one that way, you know, so that wherever you're sitting at the table, there's a heart facing towards you.
I think I have one of those.
I think you
made
do.
me one.
The other thing I like to do is I like to fill the center with little 2.5-inch squares and then do 2 hearts at the end.
Cute.
You know, so that's a cute way as well. And we really can't forget about this one, because this is just
So adorable.
it's so adorable. So I made one of these for Meg for her birthday, because before I ever do anything, I always test it out. So I tested it out on other fabric. And actually this one I sent over to be machine quilted, but the other one I just straight line quilted it on my machine. So, you know, I just got it on here.
I saw you working on that. That's right.
Yeah, I had a piece of backing, some batting, and my top piece, and then I just did 1.5-inch
So
seams, and so I didn't even have to send it to the quilter. So don't be afraid to do that yourself. But no, I don't have it here.
yeah,
I
she
gave
just
that
did
one.
it on another one.
Yeah. So, so again, don't forget this cool trick of if you don't have enough contrast between your bright squares and your light squares, just flip them over and
Love that idea. That
use
is
that
so
back
genius.
side. And so then you're not wasting anything, and you don't have to, you know, I mean, it makes it all work and it makes it all go.
Let's pull the computer up and do some.
All right, yeah,
Okay.
let's do some questions.
All right.
And they also want to see everybody behind the scenes. So let's
Oh,
go.
okay.
Oh yeah, come on over
Yeah,
here,
so
guys.
we got a little crew now.
We have
Our little
this
crew.
is an awesome team. Our awesome team.
I'm
Let's
the
have them.
cameraman. Sorry.
Yeah, so
This is Jake
this is Jake. This is my son Jake.
and my husband.
And Misty's husband. Oh, here, let you
All right.
stand by him. There you go. Misty and Jake. And then this is Isaac. And Isaac is Natalie's son. And Isaac actually is, how old are you, Isaac?
17.
17. You know, I have a lot of grandchildren. I can't keep track of all their ages. But
That's
Come on, Sarah. You gotta
but
take it
Isaac
here.
does our editing.
Yep.
So, you know, these genius grandchildren of mine, and the younger they are, the more they're born knowing how to do the computer. I think that's just, you come with that, you know.
And this is Sarah.
This is Sarah. And Sarah, tell me what you're over.
I do social media,
Social
and
media.
all Facebook and Instagram, so we love hearing from
I
all
just
of
know
you.
she follows me
Come
around
on,
a lot.
Mary.
Yes,
Mary's hiding back
I
there.
follow Jenny around a lot.
Come
That's
on,
my
just
job.
for a second, Mary.
And we
come
also
on.
have cute Mary over there.
Yeah, come on,
And Mary always helps us no matter what
She
we need
doesn't
to
want to
do.
be on camera today. We'll make her come on camera next week. She'll be prepared. So, but
All right, so let's look at some questions. Do we have any
Let's see.
questions?
let's see here. What do you do about washing something like this?
I just throw it in the wash. That's what I do. I
wash it.
I actually open the lid, put it in, and wash it. You can wash it on cold. You can wash it with color catchers. But I made a quilt that was, I actually did a Jacob's Ladder quilt, and it was solid red Moda and solid white. And I put it in the washing machine on hot, and nothing happened to it.
Nothing happened?
No. So, so it used to be we really worried about the dyes in our fabrics, and they were really unstable. We just don't really have that problem too much anymore.
Yeah, if you're buying good fabric, it
Right.
should be pretty color
But if you're
fast.
worried about it at all, then wash it on cold and use color catchers,
Yep.
and then hold your breath till the cycle is over. And with any luck, it'll be good.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see if we have
I don't wash
any
anything. I mean,
any
I
more
don't worry about it.
questions. What kind of iron are you using?
Oh, this is an Oliso,
So,
and
yeah.
it's great if you have. There's a couple things I really like about it. So my stipulations for an iron is that I want good steam and a long cord.
Yeah.
And this is one Oliso sent us, and I like it. What I like about it is that it's touch activated, so it's really easy if you have any shoulder problems at all. You're not lifting. The other thing I love is that you fill the water right here. It's like in a flat tank, so you're not, and it has like a little
Pour
spout.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's
so
really
that when
handy.
you're pouring your water in, it just goes in there, and I really do like that. And it has great steam. So I'm forever have, you know, I mean, you can do the shot of steam, watch.
People
Look at
wanted to
that.
know if we have a pattern for the heart wall hanging.
No.
Quilt, I think it is.
Oh,
We have a
this-
pattern for the
yeah.
quilt.
This is a tutorial.
This is a tutorial, and you can go, Tender Hearts, you can go watch that tutorial, and there's a pattern, and it's in a block magazine, and all that. This one is just a layout, so I just took it off, made it up in my spare time,
She did.
and you know, like the big one, I noticed on the big one, I was looking at some of them online, and the big ones, they have this center part, they have 3 rows of 11, and then it goes down to 9, 7, 5, 3, 1. But you know, it was a small wall hanging, so I just opted for the 2.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not true. I actually had it finished and sewn before I realized that the other one had 3. So, but two works, right?
Adorable.
Two is cute, right?
All right, let's take one more question. Oh, this is a good one. She said, would you consider sharing one of your quilting frustration stories and how you got past it?
Oh gosh, quilting frustration. So I'm really a make-do girl, you know. I figure it out, I make do, you know. So here's my whole theory on this is like if you're cutting a block and you cut it wrong, basically what happens is those blocks have to all be the same size to work.
Right.
So sometimes you end up with a, you know, bag or a pillow or a pot holder, but as long as you square them all up, they're going to work. So that's pretty much my personality. You know, if I'm doing anything, you know, like I used to run the children's program at our church, and my whole theory was, in 3 hours it's over and we're all going to go home. Amen. So we just got to get through these 3 hours, you know. And I kind of do the same thing. I just make it work. And I keep my scraps, and I use everything. And so my frustrations aren't long lasting. You know, I would say, you know, if I have a frustration, it would be that I can't get what's in my head into somebody else's head. And so, you know, I have to. It's hard. You know, I have to make it all to show them because they're not. You know, because who could understand this brain?
It's a wonder of a brain. It really is.
It's a fast mover, I'm telling you.
So true.
Any more questions?
What machine you're using?
I'm using the Baby Lock Jane.
Baby Lock Jane.
And it's very fast. I used to be a puller. You know, I pulled my fabric through because it wasn't going fast enough for me. And if you are a puller, it's because you don't have a fast enough machine.
That's true.
So Baby Lock Jane, 1,500 stitches a minute. However, it's only a straight stitch.
Yeah.
So if you want to do other things, you have to have another machine as well. So, but it's a real good fast one for me.
Oh, and someone asked about your ironing board.
Oh, we actually have a tutorial on this.
On this as well.
And this is a piece of flooring. So here's where you know how you'll know how
Oh,
it's all right. It'll come up. You'll know how cheap I am and how I can just make do.
She's really a make-do girl. It's not a joke.
So this is a piece of flooring right here, and I had them just cut it to a size that I thought was good. And then I cut a towel and put a towel around it because the batting kind of slid around. So I used a towel and I sewed the sides and slid it on the board. And then I laid it down on my fabric and I cut it just about half an inch bigger on either side and opened that up and slid it. And then I just folded over. Now the cool thing about this is that you really can make this to fit any space you have. So just measure your space and cut your space. See, it fits on here perfectly because that was my space.
That's what we needed.
So real easy way to do it. All right, well, it looks like our time is up. Thanks for all the comments. Make sure you look in those comments for more ideas. And we just hope you have the most wonderful Valentine's Day. It's one of my favorite holidays. Yeah. I guess mostly because my husband is such a romantic.
Yeah, he is very sweet.
He is very
sweet. So is mine. We're lucky.
We are lucky girls. Anyway, we hope you have a wonderful Valentine's Day and make some awesome hearts. And we'll